Hi, my name is Martha, and I'm 22 and I live in Kentucky. So in the summer of 2017, I was sort of in between gigs to pay for college, so I decided to go and work in a gym. I live in a small city, and to put it into context, the gym was in the middle of nowhere, the closest thing being an abandoned retirement home and a gas station, plus a few miles from a Target and CVS. It was kind of a sketchy place, but pretty modern and safe. Inside the gym, there is a front desk with a narrow hallway. The first floor for the men's dressing rooms, treadmills, weights, and the third floor is the women's dressing rooms plus everything else. One night, my 17-year-old colleague and I were the only ones left to close up, and there was a bunch of people still working out. We made our announcement about closing in 20 minutes and people started to leave. There's one guy still on a treadmill with headphones on, so I tap his shoulder to tell him we're closing soon. He smiles and nods and asks what my name is. I tell him my name and smile back. Then his face falls and he tells me, "Well, Martha, if you don't want any trouble here, never disturb me when I'm doing my sets. Get lost, you bloody cunt." I'm in shock, but decide to let him do his thing until we close because I'm scared to say anything else. I go to clean the machines with my colleague and tell him what happened. He suggests we call our supervisor, so I do, and she tells me just to keep the gym open until he leaves because he probably won't stay for long and we'll get paid for some overtime. So we do our thing and everyone leaves except him. The guy was about 6'4", a broad man, black sweatsuit, and honestly not very clean cut. He had a really strong odor of alcohol and didn't really seem like someone who took care of himself. So me and this 5'3" high schooler are kind of scared already. After about 40 minutes, my co-worker is cleaning out the dressing room and I'm at the front desk when I hear him coming down the stairs. He checks out and stays to chat with me. He apologizes for earlier and tells me he doesn't like it when women boss him around. And then he asks for my number. I told him that I had a boyfriend who would pick me up from work, which was a lie, but I didn't want him creeping around the building. He jokes about if he kidnapped me, I would be all his, and tells me he's killed someone before for a woman. I'm in shock, and he keeps talking, but I'm frozen. He mentions how he owns me now and is going to watch over me. Then he tells me good night and goes down the last stairs to the front door, and I go back in to finish up, basically in tears. This is where I made a mistake. I should have instantly locked that front door, but I didn't. About 30 minutes later, when I'm left alone to close, I head down the corridor to leave. In the darkness, I see someone crouching behind the desk. But thinking it might be my co-worker, I call out his name. He doesn't say anything. I get a bit closer and then I smell the very strong sweat and alcohol on the guy from earlier. I get a gut feeling to go upstairs to text my co-worker. He tells me he already left and that I should call the police. When I'm sitting in the locked bathroom, I hear him walk into the women's dressing rooms and call out my name. I wait for a good 20 minutes before the police showed up to arrest him, and turns out he wasn't kidding and had gunned down a man before. The next day I handed in my 20 days and only worked in malls after that. This happened last month and honestly, I'm still shaken up about it. It was about 2 a.m. and I was leaving a buddy's house after a get-together to catch up. I've done this walk at least a few hundred times, at all hours of the day and night, so I was fairly confident of my safety. The walk was short, maybe 25 to 30 minutes, more or less. I was wearing a backpack with random stuff inside of it, so I had a bit of a load. I was a little stoned considering I smoked a bit before leaving, so I decided to listen to something on YouTube. I wanted to switch things up from listening to music, so I decided to listen to scary stories. I loaded up a corpse husband video and put in my headphones. I'm walking and listening, and I shit you not, 2 minutes into the video, I hear a voice behind me. "Hey you, half and half." I instantly know he means me because of my hair. I have it split dyed, half black and half blonde. I casually look behind me while I'm walking and I see who called out to me. There were 3 men following me. All of them were tall and dressed in dark clothes. One of them was holding a pipe or a bat, I couldn't tell. "Stop walking and drop your bag! We have a gun!" My heart was in my throat. I was terrified. I looked around ahead of me and saw a police officer among a few cars in the 4-way traffic a few dozen yards ahead of us. I silently prayed for it to turn down my road, but it continued forward. I zoned out while focusing on the police car and didn't notice the man get closer. I heard one of them getting very close, and I took off as fast as I could. I ran across the 4-way near the high school and hopped over a few fences and ran through backyards, anything to get as far away as possible. I got a few blocks away and got to the road, only to be greeted by a police officer. "Get on the ground now!" He had a taser drawn and a flashlight in my eyes. I immediately complied and got to the ground. He asked me why I was running and hopping fences at 2 a.m. and I told him I was trying to get away from people trying to attack me. He paused for a second and said, "Stand up." I stood up and he looked at me and said, "Were you just walking up on that street?" He takes the name of the street. "Yeah, officer, I was." "Were you the officer I saw with the cars?" I replied. He nodded and told me he had seen 3 men roaming around the street numerous times. They were creepy, but walking around isn't a crime, so he didn't stop and question them. I told him my routing so he understood why I was trespassing so many yards, and he told me I wasn't in trouble since I was fleeing for my own safety. The officer had me describe the men as much as possible and proceeded to radio everything in. Afterwards, he followed me home in his car, never more than 2 blocks away. I got home safe and thanked him. I didn't sleep much that night. I used to work at a pub that was about 2 miles from my house. My shift ended at 11 one night. I stayed there for a couple of drinks, then started walking home. Now, this had been an exceptional night for me tip-wise, and I had close to $400 in cash on me at the time. Between the pub and my house, there was exactly 1 streetlight, about a quarter mile from the pub. The rest of the walk was in complete darkness. This was a dark night too. It was close to a new moon and cloudy too, so it was almost pitch black. Now, I live out in the boonies, so there isn't even much light pollution to help me out. Not long after I leave the pub, a car slowly drives by me. About a quarter mile down the road, the car slows to a stop, and it just sits there. I stop walking and watch the car. It sits for a few minutes, then slowly drives away. A couple of minutes later, the same car comes slowly driving back to me in the opposite lane. It gets by me, drives a bit down the road, and slows to a stop again. Then it does a U-turn and starts creeping back down the road towards me with the lights off. At this point, I'm fucking terrified. I don't have a cell phone on me. There's no one around to see what's going on. The car is between me and the pub, so I can't get back to safety. My house is still about 1.5 miles away. No way I can quickly escape there. I quickly run off the road into the woods and duck down behind a bush. I watch for the car, but it's too dark to see it with the lights off and the bushes, trees, and undergrowth between me and the road. I sit there for about 10 minutes, but I don't see or hear anything. I'm about to make my way back to the road when I hear car doors closing. Now I'm really panicking. It feels like my chest is about to explode. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I keep imagining someone sneaking up behind me. I stay hidden and hope to God whoever it is doesn't find me. I don't know how long I can stay there, but I eventually hear the car doors again, then cars passing by. I give it a couple of minutes, then ease back to the road. I haul ass back to the pub and let my boss know what happened. He said then and there that I'm never to walk home at night again. Either him, his brother, or his mum will give me a lift home. I still don't feel comfortable walking that road, even during the daytime.